Among the guests was Secretary of State James Brokenshire, and our reporter Declan Harvey asked some of the employers what they would say to the Secretary of State if they had the chance during the post-dinner mingling.
Has James Brokenshire said anything to reassure these top business people? They've been described twice tonight as the engine room of Northern Ireland's economy. One of them is Michael Scott, MD of Firmus Energy.
I think we'll get there in the end, but I think there is a challenge there, so I wouldn't like to be just pasting over the cracks.
He did call on your company and the 99 others represented here to get in touch with your politicians and put the pressure on and say we really need an assembly. Is that something that you would do, or is that in a sense passing the buck?
No, I think it is important. I think we need everybody to be speaking to their politicians, to their MLAs. It's very important to do it. And if we don't do it, well then how can we complain about progress not being made?
As the night goes on and people finish their dinner and I don't know, the DJ comes out and the 70s tracks start playing and you find yourself on the dance floor next to James Brokenshire, what would you take the opportunity to say in his ear?
Don't tolerate the sort of middle of the road approach, or no, we can't do that because we've got to get on ahead and do it and make it happen.
So not any great sign of anything happening politically at the moment, but how long can we stay in this limbo? Let's talk about it with commentators Newton Emerson and Felicity Huston. Good morning to you both.
Good morning.
Newton, James Brokenshire last night saying that we're on a glide path to greater intervention from Westminster. Do you think we're nearing the end game?
Well, strictly speaking, all these political deadlines are just made up. Your question, how long can we do this for, is almost indefinitely. But, especially as we've broken through a lot of the legal deadlines in the Good Friday Agreement. But, as the budget runs out, as he needs to tweak it more, and as he needs to start thinking about setting a completely new budget at the start of next year, these little interventions that he's having to make all over are just going to add up to a tipping point where it's pretty clear that we have de facto direct rule anyway. I think there's big bumps in the road in October when he has to set a mini budget, and the end of the public sector financial year next March. I think that's when you're starting to hear people in the public sector themselves saying that's a new year, and if nothing's happened by then, well, we might as well admit we're in direct rule.
Felicity, I can hear large intakes of breath across the country. A lot of us thinking in and around maybe autumn time, and Newton now suggesting the end of the financial year, April.
Oh, I know, abandon hope, all ye who enter here. I actually thought that your report on Cassini was something of a metaphor for what has gone on with our Assembly. It all started off with great enthusiasm. It's been going for 13 years and its last gasp. Nobody's actually going to be able to see it from Earth. Though at least Cassini obviously achieved something. I'm very depressed because when devolution first started, I was a great supporter. I believed that, local politicians making decisions about local things with the understanding that, and the English direct rule minister could never have, would be wonderful, but it just hasn't transpired like that. And I think most of us are a bit like, many of the astronomers, trying to see Cassini. We've just sort of given up hope of ever finding the Assembly again. We can't keep track of it, and we've sort of just gone off to find something more interesting.
I haven't given up hope, and I actually don't think things will go on until next March. I would still say that Christmas is possibly likely for some kind of big grand deal. The real deadline on the process, I think, heaving into view now, is next summer's predicted Irish general election. Sinn Féin won't want to be going into that without an assembly because they don't get any advantage in the south from having no assembly, and it's going to start looking like a liability the closer they get to that election. So I think that at that point their calculations will change.
But so it's outside events. Sorry, Felicity. It's outside events, Newton, you would contend, that will dictate the pace of progress here rather than waiting lists or educational achievement.
Yes, just as it was with welfare reform. The welfare reform crisis, which lasted for 3 years, was very much timed throughout by the 2016 Irish general election, and I think that this is going to drift into a similar issue.
Felicity, can they play this too long? Yesterday here in the programme, certainly we got a huge number of texts from people furious that a decision taken over an incinerator was taken without a minister at the helm, taken by anonymous civil servants, and yet we also got texts from people saying, great news, great job, applauding the fact that decisions were being taken.
Yes, I think we are sort of stuck a bit within that, the feeling that it's not right that people who are unaccountable are taking decisions. But sure, somebody has to. Anybody sitting on those interminable waiting lists trying to get to see a consultant would love somebody to take control. of the health service and try and get these great reforms that have been promised for so long moving on. It is a bit of a sort of mixture. I think people will get to the stage where they don't really care as long as somebody makes a decision. And really, we have almost forgotten about our Assembly. We don't know what they're doing, even though they keep getting paid for it. You know, there's just that feeling about it. We have no elections scheduled in the UK unless the general election should be called again. So our guys here can hang on and hang on. I think Newt's right about the influence of the Irish election. Sinn Féin don't want to be seen to have sort of abandoned the North, and they want to be seen to be responsible and able to do things. But maybe that will produce it. But I actually don't think, apart from sort of personally affected by the inertia of government, I think collectively we really don't care anymore, which is very sad.
Final word to Newton. Felicity mentioning pay, salary. Is that a subject that's just too hot to handle? Because once you've gone for the salaries, that's when hope is extinguished.
Yes, and that's why it wasn't cut throughout it was cut but not stopped throughout the 5-year suspension a decade ago. It was cut by a quarter right at the very start of that, but then it was left there, even through the St Andrews Agreement when Peter Hain threatened to cut it. He never pulled the plug, because that is the end, that's the official end of the process. Your political class just drifts away.
Okay, good to talk to you both. Thank you, Newton Emerson and Felicity Huston.
Keep the text coming in, 81771. Just one of them for now. No decision, we complain. Decision made, we complain. Welcome to Northern Ireland.